My name is Candice Williams, a 32-year-old Boston attorney with a newly inherited Victorian house from my beloved grandmother. Family dinners were never my thing, especially with the tension between me and my younger sister, Vanessa. But when Mom called insisting we all meet at Maison Blanche, that fancy French restaurant downtown, something felt off. My stomach knotted as I parked my car, dreading whatever family drama awaited inside. Little did I know this dinner would change everything. Before I dive into what happened, drop a comment letting me know where you are watching from. Hit that like and subscribe button to follow my journey through family chaos. Growing up in suburban Massachusetts, the contrast between how my parents treated me versus Vanessa was impossible to ignore. From elementary school onward, I was the responsible one, the child who needed to set an example. Meanwhile, Vanessa, 4 years younger, became the perpetual baby of the family who could do no wrong. When I needed money for school supplies, Mom would hand me $10 and say, "Make it work, Candice. You are smart." But when Vanessa wanted the latest video game or trendy clothes, my parents somehow always found the money. "Your sister is sensitive," Dad would explain when I questioned the unfairness. "She needs more support." By 16, I was working weekends at the local grocery store while maintaining straight A's. Vanessa spent her teenage years floating between hobbies that my parents eagerly funded. Dance lessons 1 month, horseback riding the next. Nothing stuck, but the pattern did. I paid for my own prom dress by taking extra shifts. Vanessa got her dream dress without question. Only my grandmother Marion saw through this dynamic. Grandma lived in a beautiful Victorian house in a historic part of Boston, a 30-minute drive from our suburban home. Weekends at her house became my sanctuary. While my parents took Vanessa to her various activities, I would catch the bus to Grandma's house, where shelves of books awaited me. "You have grit," Candice, Grandma would tell me, as we sat in her garden, drinking tea from delicate porcelain cups. "That will take you further than being coddled ever will." Grandma had been a pioneering female attorney in the 1970s. Under her guidance, I set my sights on law school. When I received my acceptance letter to Boston University Law with a partial scholarship, my parents offered lukewarm congratulations before quickly changing the subject to Vanessa failing 2 classes in her freshman year of community college. "She is just finding herself," Mom said. "Not everyone can be academically gifted like you." Law school was brutal. I worked part-time at a coffee shop, took out loans, and studied until my eyes burned. Grandma helped when she could, slipping me grocery money and occasionally covering a textbook. "This is an investment in something great," she would say. Meanwhile, Vanessa dropped out of college after 3 semesters. My parents paid the deposit on her apartment when she decided to pursue becoming a social media influencer. They bought her lighting equipment, a new camera, and funded her brand development. Her follower count peaked at 700 before she abandoned that dream for a job at a boutique that lasted less than 6 months. I graduated with honors, passed the bar on my first attempt, and secured a position at Harrington and Palmer, a mid-sized law firm specializing in corporate law. The starting salary allowed me to rent a small but modern apartment within walking distance of my office. For the first time, I felt financially secure. Grandma attended my law school graduation beaming with pride. My parents came too, but left early because Vanessa had a blind date they insisted on helping her prepare for. "You understand," Mom said. "This could be important for her future." By 30, I had made junior partner. The same month, Vanessa lost her 4th job in 2 years and moved back home with our parents at 26. Instead of congratulating me on my promotion, my first call from Mom was asking if I could lend Vanessa money to pay off her credit card debt. "She is really trying this time," Mom insisted. "The job market is just so tough." I agreed to pay off $5,000 of Vanessa's debt on the condition she attend financial counseling. She went to one session before declaring the counselor judgmental and out of touch with modern financial realities. 3 months later, Grandma passed away peacefully in her sleep at 84. The loss devastated me. She had been my rock, my mentor, my true north, when family dynamics made me question my own worth. The reading of her will left everyone shocked. While she left small personal items and some savings to various family members, the Victorian house, with its carefully tended garden and antique furniture, was left solely to me. To my granddaughter Candice, who reminds me so much of myself at her age, the will stated, "May this house provide the sanctuary for you that it did for me." My parents were visibly upset. "Your grandmother should have split things evenly," Dad said afterward. "The house should have gone to both her granddaughters." "Or to us," Mom added. "We could have made sure it benefited everyone in the family." Vanessa refused to speak to me for weeks. When she finally did call, it was to ask if she could have Grandma's pearl necklace that had been specifically left to me. The inheritance came with responsibilities. The Victorian home, though beautiful with its ornate woodwork and stained glass windows, was over 100 years old and needed significant repairs. The property taxes were substantial, and the maintenance would require constant attention. While my parents and sister saw only the value of the house in Boston's expensive real estate market, I saw Grandma's legacy and the weight of preserving it. But I also saw the reality of my busy life as an attorney working 60-hour weeks. My modern apartment near my office suited my lifestyle. The house was a 40-minute commute from everything in my daily life. Still, I cherished having Grandma's space. For the first month after inheriting it, I would spend weekends there, sorting through her belongings and sleeping in the guest room. I could not bring myself to use her bedroom yet. The house felt both comforting and painful, a physical reminder of the woman who had believed in me when no one else did. As I prepared to face my family for dinner at Maison Blanche, it had been 6 months since Grandma's passing. 6 months of weekly calls from my mother, asking what I planned to do with all that extra space, and whether I had considered family needs in my decisions. Little did they know I had made my decision, one that would change everything. The realization that I might need to sell Grandma's house came gradually, then suddenly. 3 months after inheriting it, I was still paying double housing costs while trying to determine what to do. The practical lawyer in me kept running the numbers while my heart resisted letting go of Grandma's sanctuary. One rainy Tuesday, I took a personal day to meet with a contractor about the roof. The Victorian beauty needed at least $40,000 in critical repairs within the next year. "These old houses are money pits," the contractor said, circling water damage spots on his inspection report. "Beautiful historical money pits." I sat at Grandma's kitchen table that afternoon, surrounded by her floral wallpaper and vintage appliances, feeling the weight of the decision before me. The house was worth nearly $2 million in Boston's inflated market, even considering the needed repairs. Keeping it meant preserving Grandma's legacy, but also being tied to a property I rarely had time to visit. My modern 800-square-foot apartment downtown suited my life perfectly. It was within walking distance to my firm, had a doorman for package deliveries during my long hours, and required zero maintenance on my part. The building even had a small gym I used at 5:30 each morning before showering and heading to work. Each time I visited Grandma's house, the emotions hit me in waves. In the living room, I remembered her teaching me chess on Sunday afternoons. In the kitchen, I could almost smell her famous apple pie. In the garden, the rose bushes she had tended for decades continued blooming without her. It was beautiful, but it hurt. "What would you want me to do, Grandma?" I whispered to the empty house. The answer came when I opened her desk drawer and found a leather journal I had never seen before. Inside, in her elegant handwriting, Grandma had kept thoughts about her life. One entry from 5 years prior caught my eye. The greatest gift of this house has been the freedom it gave me to live life on my own terms. My greatest wish for Candace is that same freedom, whatever form it takes for her generation. Freedom, not obligation, not preservation at all costs. That night, I made my decision. The next week, I contacted a real estate agent specializing in historic homes. Janet understood the emotional component of my sale and promised to find buyers who would appreciate the house's character. "We will find someone who loves it as much as your grandmother did," she assured me. Within 3 weeks, Janet had scheduled viewings with pre-qualified buyers. I deliberately avoided being present for these tours, finding it too painful to watch strangers evaluate Grandma's sanctuary. Janet called me after each showing with updates. Most potential buyers balked at the renovation costs or wanted to modernize the interior in ways that would have horrified Grandma. Then came Michael and Olivia Chen, a young surgeon and kindergarten teacher expecting their first child. "They spent extra time in the garden," Janet reported. The woman teared up when she saw the library. They asked if any furniture was included because they love the period pieces. When their offer came in, it was slightly below asking price but included a letter. In it, Olivia wrote about growing up in a similar Victorian home in Philadelphia, how she had always dreamed of raising children in a house with history and character. They promised to preserve the garden and restore rather than replace the original features. I countered their offer, not for more money but with conditions. Grandma's antique desk would stay with the house, the rose garden would be maintained, and the stained glass window in the front hall would never be removed. They agreed immediately, and even asked if I would be willing to share stories of the house's history over coffee sometime. The negotiations moved quickly. Inspections were completed, paperwork filed. I found myself signing the final documents on a Friday afternoon, exactly 1 week before the family dinner at Maison Blanche. As I handed over the keys to Janet to give to the excited young couple, I felt a mixture of sadness and surprising relief. That evening alone in my apartment, I drafted plans for the Marion Williams Scholarship Fund. The majority of the house proceeds would establish a trust to help female law students with financial need, just as Grandma had helped me. It felt right away to extend her legacy beyond physical walls. I had not told my family about selling the house. Every time the topic arose during our infrequent phone calls, my mother would make comments about how nice it would be for family to benefit from the property. Dad would mention Vanessa's ongoing financial struggles and the high cost of rent in Boston. The subtext was clear, but no one said it directly. Until that dinner. Maison Blanche stood like a glittering jewel in downtown Boston, its French architecture and soft lighting designed to impress. I arrived 10 minutes early, as was my habit, and requested our reserved table. The hostess led me to a corner spot, partially secluded by decorative columns, and a large potted plant offering the illusion of privacy in the busy restaurant. "Would you like to order a drink while waiting for your party?" the server asked after I settled in. "Just water for now, thank you," I replied, my stomach too knotted for alcohol. I needed clear thinking for whatever awaited me. 15 minutes later, my parents arrived together. Mom wore her pearl necklace and navy dress that she reserved for special occasions. Dad had on his only suit, slightly outdated but well-maintained. They spotted me and approached with the stiff formality that had characterized our relationship since Grandma's will reading. "Candace, you look well," Mom said, offering her cheek for the obligatory kiss. "Work must be treating you nicely." "The firm keeps me busy," I responded with my standard answer. "How was the drive in?" Dad launched into a complaint about Boston traffic, while we settled into an uncomfortable silence, broken only when the server returned for drink orders. Mom requested white wine. Dad, his usual scotch on the rocks. Vanessa is running late, Mom explained, checking her phone. She had a job interview today. That is good news, I said sincerely. What position? Some marketing assistant role. Dad waved his hand dismissively. You know how these things go with her. Fingers crossed, this one sticks. 20 minutes, and one bread basket later, Vanessa made her entrance. At 28, my sister had mastered the art of being fashionably late while making it seem like an accomplishment. Her blonde hair was freshly highlighted, her outfit clearly new and expensive. Sorry, everyone, she announced, sliding into the chair beside Mom. The subway was a nightmare. I should have taken an Uber. No mention of the interview, I noticed. You look lovely, sweetheart, Mom said, patting Vanessa's hand. Should we order appetizers? I am starving. Dinner proceeded with the surface-level pleasantness my family excelled at maintaining in public. We discussed safe topics, the unseasonably warm October weather, Dad's golf game improvements, a movie Mom had recently enjoyed. I provided brief updates about my latest case when prompted, careful not to show off as Vanessa had accused me of doing at previous gatherings. Junior partner by 32, Dad commented when I mentioned an upcoming corporate merger I was handling. Always the overachiever. Not everyone gets to play with million-dollar contracts, Vanessa said, swirling her wine glass. Some of us live in the real world. Your sister works very hard, Mom interjected her standard response whenever the tension between us surfaced. But we are all proud of you too, Vanessa. The right opportunity will come along. I took a long sip of water, letting the moment pass. This was our family dance, carefully choreographed steps we had performed for years. As the main courses arrived, Mom shifted the conversation in a direction that made my skin prickle with warning. Candies, how is the house? Have you moved in fully yet? She asked too casually. I have been spending some weekends there, I answered carefully. My apartment is still more convenient for work. Such a waste, Dad commented, cutting into his steak. All that space for just one person who is never there. Vanessa perked up at this opening. Have you fixed the upstairs bathroom yet? The shower never had good pressure. The familiarity with which she discussed the house bothered me. Vanessa had visited Grandma perhaps twice a year, at most, usually when she needed money or a sympathetic ear after another failed relationship. I have not done any major renovations, I replied neutrally. Well, before you do, you should consult with all of us, Mom said. Family input is important for decisions about family property. There it was, the first direct claim on Grandma's house as family property rather than my inheritance. Marion left the house to Candice, Dad said, surprising me by stating the obvious. But he continued, dashing my momentary hope for support we have always shared in this family. Your mother and I raised you girls to look out for each other. The server interrupted to refill water glasses and check on our meals, providing a brief respite from the building tension. I need to use the restroom, Mom announced suddenly. Candice, will you join me? The women's bathroom ritual universal across cultures. I followed dutifully, sensing the coming private conversation. Inside the elegant bathroom with its marble countertops and fresh flowers, Mom reapplied her lipstick in the mirror while I washed my hands. Your sister is struggling, she said without preamble. The economy is terrible for young people these days. Not everyone can be as fortunate as you have been. Mom, I worked through law school. I took out loans. I earned my position. Yes, she waved away my protest. But Marion gave you advantages Vanessa never had. That special bond between you two, the extra attention, and now this house, worth a fortune in today's market. It is simply not fair to your sister. Life is not fair, I said quietly, thinking of all the childhood advantages Vanessa had received while I worked checkout lines and studied by flashlight after bedtime. Do not be difficult about this, Candice. Mom's tone hardened. We are family. We need to make decisions that benefit everyone, not just you. We returned to the table in silence, the weight of unspoken expectations heavy between us. Vanessa was checking her phone while Dad signaled for another scotch. I had a sinking feeling the worst was yet to come. The dessert menus arrived, offering a momentary distraction from the tension hovering over our table. Dad ordered creme brulee, Mom and Vanessa decided to split the chocolate souffle, and I requested mint tea, my appetite long gone. So Vanessa began setting down her phone with deliberate casualness. I have some news to share. Something in her tone, that particular lilt she used when she felt victorious, set off warning bells in my mind. I had a really good talk with Mom and Dad last weekend, she continued, glancing at our parents, who suddenly seemed very interested in the table settings. And we have come up with the perfect solution for everyone. Solution to what I asked cautiously. Vanessa beamed clearly, enjoying her moment in the spotlight. Well, you know how I have been struggling to find a nice place to live in Boston on an entry-level salary, and you have this enormous house that you barely use. My heart rate accelerated. I maintained a neutral expression, years of courtroom poker faces serving me well. I am moving in with you, Vanessa announced triumphantly. Mom and Dad agreed. It makes perfect sense. You get company and help with that big old house, and I get to live somewhere nice, without breaking the bank. Win-win. The silence that followed felt eternal. I looked from Vanessa's expectant face to my parents' carefully arranged expressions of casual support. When exactly did you all decide this? I finally asked, my voice steady. We have been discussing it for a while, Mom said. Ever since Marion left you the house, really. It seemed the fair way to handle things given that you received such a valuable asset alone. Grandma left me the house, I stated firmly. It was her decision. And now you get to decide how to use it to benefit the family, Dad interjected. Your grandmother would have wanted that. No, I said firmly. Grandma would have wanted me to use it as I see fit. She was very clear about respecting boundaries. Vanessa's smile faltered slightly. Look, we have already worked everything out. I can move in next weekend. I will take the blue bedroom upstairs, the one with the window seat. You will hardly notice I am there. And who will pay for utilities? Food, the property taxes, the repairs, I asked. Well, obviously you would cover those, Mom said, as if it were self-evident. You make 6 figures, Candice. Vanessa is just starting out. She is 28, I pointed out. Hardly just starting out. Not everyone has their life perfectly planned like you, Vanessa, snapped her pleasant facade, cracking. Some of us take longer to find our path. I took a deep breath, then a deliberate sip of water. The moment had arrived, though not as I had anticipated. I sold the house, I said calmly. The papers were finalized last Friday. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the ambient restaurant noise seemed to fade away as 3 pairs of eyes stared at me in disbelief. That is not funny, Candice, Mom finally said. It is not a joke. I sold Grandma's house to a lovely young couple. They close escrow next month. Vanessa's face contorted from shock to rage in seconds. You cannot do that. That house was part of my future, too. The house was left to me, I repeated. I made the decision that was right for me. Without consulting your family, Dad's voice rose sharply. Without considering your sister's needs. How could you be so selfish, Mom? Hissed, mindful of neighboring tables, despite her obvious anger. We promised Vanessa she could live with you. You had no right to make that promise, I said, maintaining my composure through practiced effort. The house was mine to sell. What am I supposed to do now? Vanessa wailed, tears springing to her eyes with the perfect timing she had mastered since childhood. I already gave notice at my apartment. I told everyone I was moving. You did that before even speaking to me, I pointed out. That was premature. You owe your sister a place to live, Dad declared, jabbing his finger toward me. If you sold the house, you can use that money to buy something for both of you. Or at least pay her rent somewhere decent, Mom added. It is the least you can do after this betrayal. The word betrayal hung in the air between us. In their eyes, I had betrayed the unspoken family contract that my success, my resources, my inheritance, all belonged partially to them, especially to Vanessa, that I existed in part to subsidize my sister's chaotic life choices. Vanessa was now openly crying mascara tracking down her cheeks. You have always hated me, she accused between sobs. You have always been jealous that Mom and Dad love me more. The absurdity of that statement might have made me laugh if the situation were not so painful. Instead, I felt a curious sense of clarity washing over me. For years, I had tried to earn my family's approval while simultaneously resenting their expectations. Now facing their unfiltered demands, I finally saw the truth. I do not hate you, Vanessa, I said quietly, but I am not responsible for housing you, and I am not obligated to consult any of you about my financial decisions. After everything we have done for you, Mom, said her voice trembling with anger. I looked at her, really looked at her, perhaps for the first time, as an equal adult rather than a daughter seeking approval. What exactly have you done for me, Mom? The desserts arrived in the midst of our standoff, the server, quickly sensing the tension and retreating after placing them down. No one touched the elegant confections. The real confrontation had only just begun. What do you mean? What have we done for you? Dad asked. His face flushed with anger and the effects of his second scotch. We raised you. We put a roof over your head. We supported your education. I worked through high school and college, I replied calmly. I earned scholarships. I took out student loans that I paid back myself. Grandma helped with law school expenses when she could. We were always there emotionally, Mom insisted, dabbing at her eyes with her napkin. Not everything is about money, Candice. I took another measured sip of water, organizing my thoughts, like I would for a closing argument. Let us talk about Vanessa's financial situation, I said, turning to my sister, whose tears had momentarily paused as she monitored my response. What about it? She asked defensively. You have maxed out 3 credit cards that I know of. You borrowed $12,000 from Mom and Dad last year for your influencer business that never materialized. You asked me to co-sign a car loan 6 months ago, which I declined. You have had 7 different jobs in the past 3 years. The job market is terrible, she insisted, and I have been searching for my passion. I found you a position at my firm's administrative department 2 years ago, I reminded her. You quit after 3 weeks because the 8:30 start time was inhumane. Not everyone is a robot like you, Vanessa snapped. Some people need work-life balance. What I need, I said firmly, is for all of you to understand that I am not Vanessa's backup plan or financial safety net. The house was mine to sell, and I sold it. To spite your sister, Mom asked incredulously. Number. Because it was the right decision for me. The house needed significant repairs that I did not have time to oversee with my work schedule. The property taxes were substantial. And frankly, I do not want to live with Vanessa. My sister gasped at this direct statement. You are a horrible person. I am not horrible for having boundaries, I responded. What is horrible is you 3 planning my living situation without my input, as if my needs and preferences do not matter. Family Helps Family Dad insisted his standard refrain whenever financial assistance for Vanessa was discussed. I have helped, I pointed out. I paid off $5,000 of Vanessa's credit card debt last year on the condition she attend financial counseling, which she quit after 1 session. I have given her job referrals. I have offered to help her create a budget. What I will not do is let her move into my property without my consent. But you have so much, Vanessa cried. Your fancy job, your apartment downtown, and now all this money from selling Grandma's house. And what do I have? Nothing. You have had every advantage, I said, my carefully maintained composure finally cracking. You had dance lessons, horseback riding, summer camps, a car at 16 that Mom and Dad paid for. You had college tuition covered before you dropped out. You have lived rent-free with Mom and Dad multiple times as an adult. You have had every safety net possible. My parents exchanged uncomfortable glances as I laid out these facts. The restaurant around us continued its elegant hum of conversation and clinking glasses oblivious to our family implosion. "What are you going to do with the money from the house?" Dad demanded, changing tactics. "I am establishing a scholarship fund in Grandma's name for female law students with financial need," I answered honestly. "The papers are being drawn up next week." "You would rather give money to strangers than help your own sister." Mom's voice rose in pitch. "I am honoring Grandma's legacy in a way that reflects her values," I said. "She believed in education and self-sufficiency." "She would be ashamed of how you are treating your family," Dad declared. That statement hit me like a physical blow. For a moment, I could not respond, the air seemingly sucked from my lungs. Then, with clarity that comes from absolute certainty, I replied, "No, she would not. Grandma understood boundaries better than anyone. She supported me because she believed in me, not because we shared DNA. She would expect me to make my own decisions about my inheritance." "If you do this," Mom said, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper, "if you refuse to help your sister, when you have the means, I do not know how we can continue as a family." The ultimatum hung in the air between us. For years I had feared this exact scenario, this choice between my autonomy and my family's approval. Now that it had arrived, I felt strangely calm. "That would be incredibly painful," I acknowledged. "But I cannot live my life making decisions based on Vanessa's needs over my own. Not anymore." "So, that is it," Vanessa demanded, fresh tears spilling. "You are choosing money over family." "No," I said firmly. "I am choosing healthy boundaries over unhealthy expectations. There is a difference." "After everything we have sacrificed for you," Mom began, but I cut her off. "What sacrifices exactly? Please tell me what you have sacrificed for me that compares to what you have given Vanessa." The silence that followed confirmed what I had always known, but never had acknowledged so directly. My parents had no answer because there was none. I signaled for the check, which the server promptly brought. I handed over my credit card before anyone could object. "I am not abandoning my family," I said, as we waited for the transaction to process. "But I am establishing clear boundaries about what I will and will not do. I will not house Vanessa. I will not give her proceeds from the house sale. I will help her with job connections and career advice if she genuinely wants it. That is what I can offer." "It is not enough," Dad said flatly. "Then I am sorry we have reached this impasse." I signed the receipt, left a generous tip, and stood to leave. "I love you all," I said, meaning it despite everything. "When you are ready to respect my decisions about my own life, we can talk." I walked out of Maison Blanche alone, leaving behind half-eaten desserts and the weight of unreasonable expectations I had carried for too long. The drive back to my apartment passed in a blur. Boston's evening lights swirled around me as I navigated familiar streets on autopilot, my mind replaying the dinner confrontation in endless loops. By the time I parked in my building's garage, my hands were shaking from the adrenaline crash. Inside my apartment, I kicked off my heels and collapsed onto the sofa, finally allowing the emotions I had suppressed at dinner to surface. My phone buzzed repeatedly, notifications flooding in from my family. I silenced it without looking, and called the one person who would understand. "Elaine, are you free to talk?" My voice cracked as my best friend from law school answered. "Candice, what is wrong?" Elaine's concern was immediate. I recounted the dinner disaster from Vanessa's announcement to my parents' ultimatum. Elaine listened without interruption, then responded with the blunt honesty I valued in our friendship. "They ambushed you," she stated firmly. "They made plans for your property without your consent, then tried to manipulate you when their scheme fell apart. You did nothing wrong here." "Then why do I feel so terrible?" I asked, staring at the ceiling. "Because you have been conditioned your entire life to feel responsible for Vanessa's welfare," Elaine replied. "Breaking that pattern feels like betrayal even when it is actually just healthy boundary setting." After our call ended, I finally checked my phone. 5 missed calls from Mom, 3 from Dad, and dozens of text messages ranging from Vanessa's tearful accusations to my mother's guilt trips. The final text from Dad was the most direct. "Your grandmother would be heartbroken by your selfishness." That one cut deepest. I poured a glass of wine and stood by my apartment window, looking out at the city lights. Would Grandma be disappointed in me? I did not think so. But decades of family conditioning made doubt creep in around the edges of my certainty. Sleep eluded me that night. I tossed and turned, alternating between righteous anger and gnawing guilt. By morning, I had made one decision: I would call my therapist for an emergency session. Dr. Harrison had helped me navigate the complex emotions following Grandma's death. Now she listened carefully as I described the family dinner and its aftermath. "What strikes me," she said after I finished, "is how your family discussed your house and your inheritance as communal property, as if your individual rights to it were secondary to their collective claims." "They have always been that way," I acknowledged. "Individual boundaries were never respected in my family, especially mine. And now that you have enforced a clear boundary by selling the house, they are responding with what we call extinction burst behaviors. The intensity of their reaction is precisely because you are changing the established dynamic." I left her office with renewed clarity, if not complete peace. Back at work, I threw myself into case preparations, grateful for the distraction of complex corporate law. My focus was interrupted mid-week when my assistant buzzed my office intercom. "Miss Williams, there is a Vanessa Williams here to see you. She does not have an appointment. She is quite insistent." My stomach dropped. "Give me 2 minutes, then send her in." I quickly closed confidential files on my computer and took several deep breaths. When Vanessa burst into my office, her eyes were red-rimmed, but her expression was combative rather than tearful. "You need to fix this," she demanded without greeting. "I have nowhere to go. My landlord already rented my apartment to someone else." "Good afternoon to you too, Vanessa," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "Please lower your voice. This is my workplace. I do not care. My life is falling apart because of you." Her volume actually increased, causing my assistant to appear worriedly in the doorway. "Everything okay, Miss Williams?" he asked. "We are fine, Jeffrey. Please close the door." I turned back to my sister. "Sit down, Vanessa. If you cannot speak calmly, this conversation is over." She dropped dramatically into the chair opposite my desk. "Mom and Dad said I could live with you. I gave up my apartment. Where am I supposed to go?" "Back to Mom and Dad's house, I presume," I replied. "Since they made promises on my behalf, they can help solve the problem they created." "They said no," Vanessa wailed. "They said I need to learn independence." The irony was almost comical. After years of enabling Vanessa's dependence, our parents had chosen this moment to suddenly promote self-sufficiency. I am sorry to hear that, I said carefully, but that does not make it my problem to solve. I am going to sue you, she threatened, her expression hardening, for my share of Grandma's house. It should have been half mine. You are welcome to consult an attorney, I replied, unfazed. The will was very clear, and I have already sold the property legally. I will tell everyone what you did, she continued desperately. I will post it all over social media. Everyone will know how you abandoned your family. That is your choice, I said, standing, to indicate the meeting was over. But it will not change my decision. After Vanessa stormed out, my office phone rang. It was Richard Harrington, the senior partner of our firm. Candice, is everything all right? Security called about a disturbance. I briefly explained the situation, embarrassed that my family drama had reached my employer's attention. Family law matters can be the most difficult, he said sympathetically. Take the afternoon if you need it, and let me know if you need our estate department to review anything regarding your grandmother's will. His support was unexpected and touching. As the week progressed, several colleagues stopped by my office to check on me, having witnessed Vanessa's dramatic exit. Their solidarity reinforced what Dr. Harrison had said about healthy versus unhealthy relationship dynamics. Friday evening, as I was preparing a simple dinner in my apartment, my phone rang with my parents' number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Candice, my mother began without preamble. This situation has gotten out of hand. Your father and I have been talking, and we realize we may have overstepped regarding the house. The closest thing to an apology I was likely to get. I appreciate that acknowledgement, I replied cautiously. However, she continued, Vanessa is still in a difficult position. Would you consider letting her stay with you temporarily? Just until she finds a new place? No, Mom, I said firmly. My apartment has one bedroom, and I value my privacy. Vanessa can stay with you and Dad while she looks for housing. We told her she needs to be independent. Dad's voice joined in, indicating I was on speakerphone. Then, she needs to find her own housing solution, I replied. I am not available as her backup plan. The conversation ended with strained politeness, rather than the emotional resolution I might have hoped for. That night, I made a difficult decision. I temporarily blocked my family's numbers and social media accounts. I needed space to process without constant guilt trips and accusations. The next month passed in relative peace as I focused on work, finalized the scholarship foundation paperwork, and began the healing process with Dr. Harrison's guidance. I was learning to sit with the discomfort of being labeled selfish by my family, while knowing my decisions were sound. Then an unexpected letter arrived via certified mail. It was from my parents, written in my mother's precise handwriting on formal stationery. 6 months after the disastrous family dinner, Boston experienced one of those perfect spring days that make you forget the harsh winter entirely. Sitting on a park bench during my lunch break, I reread the letter my parents had sent 3 months earlier, the words now familiar but still powerful. Dear Candice, Mom had written. After much reflection and several conversations with a family counselor, your father and I have come to recognize our role in creating the current situation. We have enabled Vanessa's dependence while simultaneously expecting you to be perpetually independent. This unbalanced treatment has been unfair to you both in different ways. The letter continued with specific acknowledgments of times they had prioritized Vanessa's wants over my needs, times they had taken my self-sufficiency for granted while rescuing my sister from consequences. It was not a perfect apology, but it was more self-awareness than I had ever expected from them. The Marion Williams Scholarship Fund had awarded its first grants to 3 promising female law students with financial need. The ceremony had been small but meaningful, held in the conference room of my firm, which had generously offered to administer the fund. Each recipient had shared her story of determination and obstacles overcome, reminding me powerfully of Grandma. My phone chimed with a text message from Elaine. "We still on for coffee at 3?" "Absolutely," I replied. "See you at Blackbird Cafe." Blackbird had become my weekend ritual, a neutral meeting ground where I had begun carefully reconstructing my relationship with my family. It had started with just Mom, 6 weeks after her letter arrived, then expanded to include Dad 2 weeks later. Today would be the fourth time Vanessa joined us. The path to healing had been neither straight nor easy. After receiving my parents' letter, I had taken 2 weeks to process with Dr. Harrison before responding. We had started with bi-weekly video calls, carefully structured around neutral topics before attempting in-person meetings. Each step required clear boundaries and expectations. Vanessa's journey had been the most surprising. After our parents stopped offering financial rescue, she had been forced to truly face her situation. She had moved in with a coworker, temporarily then found a studio apartment she could actually afford. Most shocking of all, she had kept her job at a marketing firm for 5 consecutive months, the longest employment in her adult life. Having no safety net is terrifying, she had admitted during our second meeting at Blackbird, but also clarifying. I never had to figure things out before because someone always did it for me. Our relationship remained fragile, built on cautious conversations and careful boundary maintenance. She still occasionally made passive-aggressive comments about the house or my lucky career. But these moments were becoming less frequent. As I packed up to return to the office, my phone rang with an unknown number. "Hello, is this Candice Williams?" a woman's voice asked. "Yes, this is she." "This is Olivia Chen. My husband Michael and I bought your grandmother's house. I hope it is okay that I called. The real estate agent gave me your number." "Of course," I replied, surprised but pleased. "Is everything all right with the house?" "Everything is wonderful," Olivia assured me. "Actually, that is why I am calling. We are having a small garden party next weekend to celebrate the completion of the renovations. We have restored everything just as we promised, and we would love for you to see it, if that would not be too difficult emotionally." The invitation caught me off guard. My immediate reaction was hesitation, unsure if seeing Grandma's house transformed would be painful. But something in Olivia's genuine warmth made me reconsider. I would like that I found myself saying, "Thank you for thinking of me." The following Saturday, I drove the familiar route to the Victorian house for the first time in nearly 8 months. As I parked across the street, I felt a curious mixture of nostalgia and detachment. This had been Grandma's sanctuary, then briefly mine, and now belonged to a young family making their own memories. Olivia greeted me warmly at the door, her pregnancy now clearly visible. "Thank you so much for coming," she said, leading me inside. The transformation was subtle but significant. The structure and character remained intact, but fresh paint brightened the rooms. Grandma's antique furniture had been carefully restored and arranged among more contemporary pieces. The stained glass window in the entry hall caught the afternoon light exactly as I remembered. "We kept the original fixtures," Michael explained, as he joined us, but updated the plumbing and electrical. "Your grandmother had excellent taste." As they led me through the house, I felt not grief, but a gentle satisfaction. The house was being loved, just as Grandma would have wanted. When we reached the garden, I gasped in delight. The rose bushes were thriving now, joined by a small vegetable patch and a stone path leading to a new bench. "We found her gardening journal in the potting shed," Olivia explained. "We have been following her notes for the roses. They are magnificent." We sat in the garden drinking lemonade and sharing stories, theirs of renovation, adventures mine of childhood memories with Grandma. When it was time to leave, I felt a peaceful closure I had not expected. You have made this house a home again, I told them sincerely. Grandma would be thrilled. That afternoon at Blackbird Cafe, I shared this experience with Elaine before my family arrived. So you really have no regrets about selling, she asked. None, I confirmed. The house is where it should be, with people who treasure it. The scholarship fund is helping deserving students, and most importantly, I have learned to stand firm in my own truth. When my parents and Vanessa arrived, our conversation was easier than previous meetings. We were slowly learning a new way to be family one based on mutual respect rather than obligation and expectation. I have news, Vanessa announced after our coffees arrived. I got a promotion at work, junior marketing coordinator. That is wonderful, I said sincerely. Congratulations. Thanks, she replied, a hint of her old defensiveness surfacing. It is not junior partner at a law firm, but it is something. It is your something, I corrected gently. That makes it valuable. She considered this, then nodded slowly. Progress. As our meeting ended, Mom pulled me aside. We are proud of you, she said quietly. Not just for your accomplishments, but for teaching us all about healthy boundaries. It has not been an easy lesson, but it was one we needed. The most profound realization of these past months had been understanding that love does not require self-sacrifice. That establishing boundaries is not selfish but necessary. That my worth is not measured by how much I give to others, but by how authentically I live my own truth. Grandma knew this all along. Her gift was not just the house, but the lesson it ultimately taught me. The freedom to choose my own path. The strength to stand firm when pressured. The wisdom to recognize that true family supports your growth rather than limiting it. As I walk through Boston today, I carry these lessons with me. I am building a life that honors both my grandmother's legacy and my own needs. It is not always easy, and family gatherings still have moments of tension, but the foundation is stronger now, built on truth rather than obligation. What about you? Have you ever had to establish difficult boundaries with loved ones? How did you balance your own needs with family expectations? Share your experiences in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more authentic conversations about family dynamics. Thank you for joining me on this journey. And remember, sometimes the most loving thing you can do is stand firm in your own truth.